weekend for the Alpine Elf Europa Cup. This is the 8th race of the season as we have kicked off the second half of the inaugural Alpine Elf Europa Cup here at Silverstone this weekend. 25 minutes plus one lap is the journey ahead of us, and yesterday it was Ollie Webb who took victory from Vincent Beltoise and Gael Castelli. And it's once more setting aside Webb as the non-point scoring guest driver, Castelli and Beltoise, who are the pace of the field in qualifying. But it was pole position for Ollie Webb, the vastly experienced world endurance competitor, amongst other things, has been the pace setter this weekend. Gael Castelli was great value in yesterday's race, really spectacular in the Milan competition car. And he will be hoping to maybe claim outright victory. Vincent Beltoise stayed glued to the tail of Ollie Webb for most of yesterday's race, eventually slipping back late on, but nonetheless, he took the maximum points haul from the outing. Julien Neveu was great value, but unfortunately, the Bright Orange Autosport GP driver, at least his car's bright orange, he himself isn't, was penalised for track limits late on. Pierre Santillana, then, the runaway points leader for the series so far, was a little bit muted yesterday, but he's qualified in 5th place. He'll be hoping for more. Laurent Ergon was sadly our sole retirement yesterday, and he peeled into the pits mid-race, but he'll be hoping, if not to be on the outright race podium, then at least the gentleman driver's podium. Sylvain Noël, then, the driver who was the top gentleman driver yesterday, also well in the mix in the overall competition. Jean-Baptiste Meylat was the top junior, and again he and Sylvain Noël enjoying a great scrap. Thomas Padovani had a few adventures along the way, including a fairly big spin over at Brooklands, but nonetheless he is about par for the course for this weekend, 9th on the grid. He shares the 5th row of the grid with Mathieu Blaise. Here is then the grid in full. Ollie Webb and Gael Castelli on the front row, ahead of Vincent Beltoise and Julien Neveu, then Pierre Santillana and Laurent Ergon for the top 6 places. 7th place, Sylvain Noël, ahead of Jean-Baptiste Meylat, then Thomas Padovani and Mathieu Blaise, with Nicolas Milan and Pierre Macchi, and then Franck Rouxel completing the field as he did yesterday. So it's a rolling start for the Alpine Elf Europa Cup. They all run in the A110 car, obviously somewhat modified from the road-going version, but really great fun. Car and spectacular to watch yesterday, because obviously without the benefit of aerodynamic devices, these cars move about. They certainly keep their drivers on their toes, and something for the crowd to enjoy in the September sunshine here at Silverstone. The weather could not be more different than it was a week ago. So the countdown well underway and the grid being cleared. The pace car will then lead them round for a lap, and then we'll get going for the rolling start. Hopefully they'll be cleanly through Copse Corner as they were yesterday. And given that we've had no precipitation over the weekend, the track has rubbered in really nicely. It's the last couple of mechanics clear of the grid. The signal will then be given. As you can see, it's hot in the cockpit, with Julien Neveu, one of the drivers, with their door open. I think a couple of the others, possibly Jean-Baptiste Meylat and Laurent Ergon, also with open doors. They are now all shut as the formation lap will start in about 10 seconds' time. They are using the traditional pit section of Silverstone this weekend, so Copse Corner representing the first corner on the lap as Ollie Webb leads them on their way. And Ollie, incredibly likeable character, always talking very, very articulately about his racing. Very, very rapid behind the wheel, with then Gael Castelli just alongside him on the front row of the grid, and really looking forward to see if Castelli can take the fight to Vincent Beltoise today, because yesterday it appeared as if Castelli would have the pace to challenge Beltoise, the challenge being that he couldn't get the track position until late in the race, and by that point, Vincent Beltoise was a little bit too far up the road. So this, the antepenultimate round of the Alpine Elf Europa Cup. From here, they head on to Spa-Francorchamps, and then the season coming to close at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya in the third weekend of October. They have already been to Paul Ricard, the Nürburgring, and Dijon, and it's Pierre Sanchene who's had 4 of the victories from those 6 races, so he was very much the man to beat coming into Silverstone this weekend. In qualifying yesterday, Sanchene was well up there, but then got hustled down the field in some of the early running, and thereafter struggled to come back from it a little bit, as we have a look at Laurent Hergon as they turn through Stowe Corner, this out at the furthest extremity of the circuit. For those of you interested in British geography, the track transitions from the county of Northamptonshire to the county of Buckinghamshire midway down the Hanger Straight, and then as they go past the wing pits, it moves back into from Buckinghamshire into Northamptonshire. For now, though, the cars turning through the Vale and Club Corner, and then past the wing pit where the Formula One cars are based when they race here at Silverstone, and then they swing through Abbey into the section of the circuit that was constructed about 8 years ago. And was talking to Ollie Webber, and he was saying that he's pretty sure that he raced at the first meeting on this section of track, which feeds them through Abbey and Farm into the heavy braking zone at Village, then the tight corner at the Loop, which has certainly added another overtaking dimension to track before they head down the Wellington Straight and then pick up the Brooklands and Luffield section of this Silverstone circuit. So this is the Loop, and then into the quick left-hander at Aintree down the Wellington Straight. They will form up now behind the pace car, getting ready for the rolling start with Mackie and Franck Rouxel. Finished second and third respectively in the Gentleman Drivers' Trophy yesterday, forming up towards the rear of the field. But it's the metallic blue 110 car of Ollie Webb, who starts from pole position. Alongside me on the front row of the grid then is Gael Castelli. That's the all-white number 15. Vincent Beltoise is the blue, white and red piping number 2 car, and Julien Neveu, the bright orange number 14. Pierre Sanchene's livery is like the greatest hits of Vincent Beltoise and Julien Neveu in the, or rather Ollie Webb and Julien Neveu in the, it's royal blue and orange. And then Laurent Hergon in 6th is the black and green machine. Expect it's going to be one of the top 3 rows that's going to be leading as they head in towards Copse Corner for the first time, and they're about to hit Copse in fairly short order because Ollie Webb is pacing the field through Woodcote. They're going to look to the gantries, waiting for the red lights to change, and they will be racing for the 8th time this year in the Alpine Elf Europa Cup. As they roll on their way, the lights flash green. Now away we go, and they all swarm out, heading towards Copse with a good start from Vincent Beltoise as Gael Castelli swoops around the outside of Ollie Webb. It's Castelli who leads the way then as they accelerate out of Copse, with Julien Neveu barging with Vincent Beltoise as they head up towards Maggots and Beckett's for the first time. Nicolas Milan's also made a good start, and it's Pierre Sanchene again who's lost out in the early running, who's been shuffled down to about 11th place. A dust cloud gets kicked up. Jean-Baptiste Mela takes a trip across Beckett's. He rejoins just behind Laurent Hergon. Pierre Sanchene, down into 9th or 10th place as the race leader, Gael Castelli, leads down the Hanger Straight. It's the fight for third, though, to watch for. Vincent Beltoise has got Julien Neveu tucked up right behind him as they arrive into Stowe. Also a bold move from, I think that's possibly Nicolas Milan, who, swooping through, will pick up in a moment. Or no, it wasn't. It was Sylvain Noël. My apologies. And Sylvain Noël around Laurent Hergon. So a great move from him. As there's Sanchene, who is trying to pick his way around Thomas Padovani. And they've got Mathieu Blaise as well just behind them. But Gael Castelli leads the way from Ollie Webb. Then there's a little bit of a gap in the traffic. Back to these squabbling hordes behind. And a challenge looking to the inside. Mathieu Blaise to the inside of Pierre Sanchene. See how that works. Oh, and it's worked out with a car in the gravel trap, and Sanchene taking evasive action, and I fear that Mathieu may have gone out in a blaze of glory. No, it's not. It is Thomas Padovani who is emphatically beached over at Abbey. Now, is that going to bring out a safety car? Hope not, because he's some way into the gravel trap. And whilst it's a nice day for visiting the beach, on the first lap of the races, I think it's a little bit sooner than Thomas Padovani would have wanted to. There's Laurent Ergon, slides to the inside of Sylvain Noël. These are the two gentleman drivers, or the two foremost of the gentleman drivers, and they're bottled up behind Julien Neveu as the field come through to complete the first lap of the race. Still Castelli leads the way from Oliver Webb. Third place then Vincent Beltoise. Fourth Julien Neveu. Fifth Sylvain Noël. Sixth Laurent Ergon. Seventh Jean-Baptiste Meylat. And eighth place is Nicolas Milan. Then there's a gap back to Mathieu Blaise and Pierre Sanchena. Then Franck Rouxel and Pierre Macchi, who rounds out the field. Thomas Padovani, I'm afraid, fairly emphatically in the kitty litter up at Abbey. A lot of dust already been laid over, and there's the end of it now. Padovani, lurid spin, actually quite pleased to see the car didn't dig in and go over and out, because there's a risk of that when you go sideways into the gravel trap like that. Meanwhile, here is a look at Laurent Ergon launching to the inside of Sylvain Noël. Noël knows he was going to struggle always to keep that tight. Sneaks back through. So now the fight at the front of the field. Gael Castelli with Ollie Webb just behind him. And Webb just turning up the intensity a little bit, trying to prod Castelli along. But then the fight for third. Several cars strong, that is, really all the way back to Nicolas Milan, with Mathieu Blaise and Pierre Sanchena battling behind. Still a yellow flag, though, up at Abbey, which is where they arrive now for the retrieval of Thomas Padovani. Fortunately, no safety car, so Castelli and Webb proceed through. Then this fight for third position as Nicolas Milan looking to make the move on Jean-Baptiste Meylat. He's gone for a long way back, and that's a brilliantly executed pass, because he was very, very deep on the brakes, and to get the car hooked up through the loop, impressive going. So the front of the pack head down the Wellington Straight. Already we are just almost 5 minutes into the race as we come to the end of this, the second lap. Castelli a little bit of the wider approach into Luffield, others taking the slightly tighter line. It's a really frustrating corner as a driver, because it just goes on for an absolute eternity. Now here is another look at the move from Milan to the inside of Jean-Baptiste Meylat, and Nicolas Milan leaving it very late, just glides through. And that was well executed. So Gael Castelli leads. He is 7/10 of a second up on Ollie Webb, with then a further 1.3 second deficit to Vincent Beltoise. And Castelli, he looked really confident as yesterday's race went on, and it's proving to be the case again today. Through Beckett's, now he just gets on the power as early as he can, coming out of Chapel Curve. The train of cars behind him looking to do much the same. We've got a double waved yellow flag now over at turn 11. I think that's because last time around, the drivers did back off the throttle. It was maybe not as discernible to the naked eye as it could have been. So they've been told for this occasion. Lovely shot there, as you can see all the rubber being laid down from the Michelin tires that they all run with. And this Alpine Cup car is configured for race performance, just changes the suspensions, geometry, just all those little tweaks that take a very nice and enjoyable road car into something a little bit more potent in race specification. Turning through Abbey, and that's why there's double waved yellow flag. You've got the snatch vehicle and the Marshall's trackside. The problem being that Abbey is a very, very quick approach in any event. They're all through and past the scene of the incident. Sylvain Noël in 5th place, trying to chase down Julien Neveu. Meanwhile, Gael Castelli able to monitor a bit of a buffer to Ollie Webb, but Vincent Beltoise, thus far on this lap, beginning to ease back towards them a little bit. What we're talking fractions of a second here and there. As in qualifying earlier on, the top 7 cars separated by just 0.6 of a second. Again, Castelli taking that wide line into Luffield that he really favours. The problem being with the wide line that the radius of the Luffield turn means that you don't quite get the benefit that you do at a slightly more acute hairpin when you can go wide in, tight out and on the throttle earlier. Jean-Baptiste Mella there in 8th place, looking to try and get Nicolas Milan right once more into his sights. The black and white car. The all-white car, though, of Gael Castelli leads the way. And at the moment, he's showing them a clean pair of heels, isn't he? Because Ollie Webb is staying with him, but not yet really probing and pushing for the victory. Vincent Belchois setting the fast lap of the race last time around. Still 1.4 seconds back. Now here's the opportunity for Mella, because slow out of Beckett's and through Chapel Curve was Nicolas Milan, and so the white, yellow and black car hugs the inside of the track. Mella looking to the outside at Stowe. Milan, though, positions the car in the middle of the road. There's no way around him as a result, so they stay as they were, but they do lose a little bit of ground to Laurent Ergon as a result. And this battle of through 3rd through to 8th is really where much of the action in the field is. Although you could argue it's 1st through to 8th, because although Castelli and Webb have got a little bit of a buffer over Vincent Belchois, it's not a gigantic one. Just the angle of attack of these cars as they run through Abbey and Farm is really great to see. And then on the brakes, hard for Laurent Ergon on the front of the car, pitches forward, under braking into Village again. Just running a little bit offline there, Nicolas Milan, but not enough such that Jean-Baptiste Mella could take advantage of it. So he looks to line up for another opportunity down the Wellington Straight, on the brakes then into Brooklands. Ollie Webb closing up once more onto the tail of Gael Castelli. Castelli taking that different approach into Luffield that he really seems to favour. The gap to Vincent Belchois remaining fairly static at about 1.2 seconds. Belchois with Julien Neveu just behind him. So of the leading quartet last round, it was actually Julien Neveu who was the quickest of them. So it's just 2.5 seconds that covers the leading quartet. The top 8 cars covered by 6.2. Already, we're getting on to something like 10 minutes into the race. And the field hasn't really spread at all, has it? Top 8, 6.2 seconds. Although they are just beginning to pair off rather than race as a long chain. As down the hanger straight once more. And this time Gael Castelli just waits until a little bit later on the straight before moving across to the racing line at Stowe, just making sure that Ollie Webb isn't quite close enough to challenge. He read it correctly, although Webb is a little bit nearer to Castelli than he perhaps was a lap ago. So Webb knows that he's got time on his side here. He also knows he's not got Vincent Belchois immediately on his tail. He's got that second or so buffer that he can enjoy and work with. That's partly because Vincent Belchois has got his mirrors filled with the progress of Julien Neveu. Jean-Baptiste Mella is suddenly the driver on the march. He's just set the fastest first sector of anybody in the race as they went down towards Stowe Corner. All the while, the battles going on behind. Mathieu Blaise and Pierre Sanchena still fighting with Franck Roussel for the time being, having just seen off the attentions of Pierre Matke in their fight for 3rd place on the gentleman drivers podium. So out of Aintree onto the Wellington Straight once more we go, and a little bit of a look ahead of us tells us that Ollie Webb's not near enough to Gael Castelli once more, and that's because Castelli has just posted the fastest middle sector of anybody in the race thus far. And this is quite an enthralling battle, because every time Ollie Webb just tries to up the ante a little bit, Castelli seems to have an answer, although he kicks up some dust there on the inside of Luffield. Rattles off the 5th lap of the race. 2 minutes 16.1 for Gael Castelli. So pretty close to the fastest lap of the race. Castelli, like much of the field, hailing from France. As Julian Neveu now ever closer to Vincent Belchois. This is the fight for third place. But don't forget that because Ollie Webb's not scoring points, this is also the battle for second in terms of championship points. Meanwhile, Jean-Baptiste Meyler is once more right on the heels of Nicolas Milan, and it's through Beckett's and Chapel where Milan really seems to just lose out a little bit, because the knack to Beckett's is you've got to sacrifice one of the corners. You can't take it completely flat, and Milan sometimes losing out onto the hanger straight as Belchois under pressure from Julian Neveu, and look in the background, Sylvain Noël looking to join this fight as well. And Julian Neveu as close to Belchois as he's been at any point in the race. Vincent Belchois covers the inside line to Vale. Gets the car stopped just about onto the apex. Suddenly, this train of cars all closing up on each other. All it takes is one of the cars in the train to just be a little bit slower, and they're all with him. And now, for Julian Neveu, he's got to force Belchois to defend every which way. Sylvain Noël also just having a look into Abbey, shows himself in Julian Neveu's mirrors. And it's worked because Neveu slithers offline slightly at Farm. Nobody fancies pulling the pin on the brakes into Village. Laurent Ergon also joining this scrap too, and it's Ergon who looks to the inside of Sylvain Noël. That was desperately close between them. Somehow they avoid contact. And that was very nearly an avalanche of Alpines, because Ergon committed to a move that never looked like it was going to come off, and Sylvain Noël saw it just in time, and they made sure they had fractions of a millimetre to spare between them. What it has served to do, though, is that fight for third that was all as one 4 corners ago has now separated itself a little bit once more. As Jean-Baptiste Meyler kicks up the dust on the exit of Luffield. Through they go. Gael Castelli setting the fastest lap of the race. 2 minutes 15.7, so he has found a chunk of time from somewhere. He's now 7/10 clear of Ollie Webb as Sylvain Noël looks to close onto Julian Neveu once more. Noël possibly taking a little bit more track on the exit of the copse than he perhaps ought to have done. No warning flag being flashed just yet, and this is the beauty of this battle, is they're all giving each other the hurry up, because Jean-Baptiste Meyler prodding along Nicolas Milan, who's filling Laurent Ergon's mirrors, and Laurent in turn chasing Sylvain Noël. But it's allowed Gael Castelli and Ollie Webb to break clear at the front of the field. The battle, therefore, that is going on behind is a very good one, with Vincent Belchois again just having been reeled in a little bit by Julian Neveu. Now, what we're seeing again today is what we saw yesterday, which is that these cars really are able to tow each other down the straight. What they're not able to do, though, is to translate that tow into a slingshot manoeuvre that puts them into a passing position. They're really having to work for the overtakes. But this is great racing, isn't it? 6 cars running pretty much as one, fighting for spots on the podium. As Nicolas Milan he's moving the car all over the place through Abbey and Farm, trying to set up the move to the inside. He likes it here into Village, and he darts to the inside. Jean-Baptiste Meyler sees the gap, decides to go for it, and just about slows the car in time. But Meyler, he might have the inside line here for Aintree. It's squeezed towards the curves by Laurent Ergon as they sprint along the Wellington Straight. Julian Neveu still snapping at the heels of Vincent Belchois. Nicolas Milan now released into some clear air, seeing what he can do as they hustle through Brooklands. This to the end of the 7th lap of the race. Front of the field, Gael Castelli still clear of Ollie Webb just about. Another look then at the move from Nicolas Milan, exactly as he did a few laps ago, to Jean-Baptiste Meyler to the inside to Village. Then Meyler sees the gap, thinks, I fancy that. Realises that that was unlikely to end particularly happily. Got Laurent Ergon and Sylvain Noël both currently under investigation for what we know not, as we return to the fight at the front of the field. Ollie Webb, the blue car, still pursuing Gael Castelli in the white number 15 that leads the way, as he has done ever since they swept through Copse at the start of the race. And they've got 4.5 seconds now over the ferocious battles going on behind us. Ollie Webb launches the inside into Stowe and jinks to the inside of Gael Castelli. And Webb saw his opportunity and pounced. Now, has Castelli got any sort of an answer? Meanwhile, in the background, Jean-Baptiste Meyler has moved up ahead of Laurent Ergon, so a change for 7th and 8th place as well. Suddenly, as we head towards the final third of the race, everybody's starting to show their hand a little bit. A bit more urgency about moving up through the field. The question now is that Ollie Webb is clear. Will he be able to break away from Castelli? Just make sure that there's not a glimmer of an opportunity to the inside of Village, as the rest of the field then coming out of the loop through entering down the Wellington Straight. And look, Gael Castelli all over Ollie Webb, who's having to, again, park the car in the middle of the road as they head towards Brooklands. And this is a feisty performance from Castelli. He's determined to challenge for victory here. A little bit of dust kicked up again through Luffield, and Castelli staying right in the tow behind Webb as the pair of them accelerating through Woodcote. 6 3/4 minutes plus that lap left on the clock. Through Copse Corner. Ollie Webb's transponder also seems to have taken a bit of a holiday for our timing, but it's pretty clear that he is exactly where he needs to be. The front of the field, busy fending off Gael Castelli. Now this is the section of the track where Castelli needs to absolutely nail it to stay close to Webb as they come out of Chapel Curve. The fight for third, meanwhile, behind's just separated it out a little bit, hasn't it? They've had that shuffle of the order. Laurent Ergon rippled to the back of it, and as a result, some slight gaps amongst them as Webb into Stowe Corner again, just keeping it tight. And Ollie, huge amount of experience. He isn't going to leave the door open at all for Gael Castelli. It's the rest of the group of cars in this fight for third, as Julien Neveu trying to get back onto terms with Vincent Beltoise. The investigation of Sylvain Noël and Laurent Ergon has decided that no further action will be taken. It's the field swinging their way through Albion Farm on towards Village. Again, Webb just positioning the car perfectly, making sure that he doesn't even encourage Castelli to consider a little bit of a lunge to the inside line. As they head along through entry down the Wellington Straight. It's this middle section of the circuit, though, where Gael Castelli just seems to be able to possibly have the legs on Ollie Webb, forcing Webb to, again, move towards the middle of the road as they head towards Brooklands. Webb defending as much as he dares without compromising his time and pace too much. So they both take that swoopy line through Luffield, then looking to get tight on the exit again. Nothing doing. And the clock ticking downward all the while. I make it they're going to have 3 more laps, including the one that they have just started. So, through Copse Corner. It's the way to watch the race, live stream it. As through Beckett's, and then out. This is the section of the track where Ollie Webb, by contrast, is able to consistently get the legs on Gael Castelli, and then Castelli really seems to spend the rest of the lap catching up to Webb to hustle him through Brooklands and Luffield. 3 minutes and 50 seconds plus a lap to go. So the clock is ticking as in the background Laurent Ergon a little bit over the grass. Jean-Baptiste Meyler defending nonetheless, and they've now become a little bit detached from this fight for third place. Still headed by Vincent Beltoise from Julien Neveu. Neveu, clearly having learned from his penalty of yesterday, is being almost saintly in his adherence to the track limits, with Sylvain Noël then in 5th, the top of the gentleman drivers, just ahead of Nicolas Milan. Once again, Castelli closing up to Webb really everywhere except for Beckett's and the hanger straight. Of course, that's where Webb was able to make the decisive manoeuvre, or at the moment what would appear to be the decisive manoeuvre, with just under 3 minutes left on the clock. Now, if they cross the line with 2 minutes 16 seconds or less on it, then that is going to trigger the last lap of the race next time around. As they head into Brooklands, Webb just moves across, covers, wouldn't quite say preemptively, but he just makes sure that the door isn't open at all for Gael Castelli, as they then pick up the pace and accelerate through. Through Woodcote on towards the start and finish line. Vincent Beltroise beginning to shake off Julien Neveu, and in turn, as Beltroise has been just elevating his pace slightly on that last lap, so Sylvain Noël has, so Julien Neveu has gone with him, but Sylvain Noël has dropped back a little bit from Neveu, so the fight for second just stretching itself as we head towards the last stage of the race. Again, Castelli right up with Webb, heading towards Beckett's. This looks better for Castelli through Beckett's. He's maybe just exactly following what Webb is doing, as the pair of them get on the throttle nice and early through Chapel Curve. Got the glut of warning flags having been issued. And this is as close as Castelli has been to Webb as they head down towards Stowe Corner, and Gael Castelli looks the outside line. Ollie Webb covers the inside. Webb will slow the car then for the apex. Castelli, though, was just about distant enough not to be delayed by that tactic from Ollie Webb, so it means he stays right with Webb as they arrive into Vale, and Ollie, seesawing at the wheel, gets the power down. I think he and Gael Castelli will be enjoying themselves enormously at the moment, because this is the sort of racing that the Alpine Elf Europa Cup is designed to be all about. Really, really close racing. The evenly matched cars that are great fun to drive, but also clean and fair racing as well. They're giving each other the space that they need, but they're certainly asking all the right questions. So through the loop for the penultimate time, Gael Castelli, there, the car just moving underneath him a little bit. He was trying to get the jump on Webb, get on the throttle a teeny bit earlier. So little between them as they head down towards Brooklands once more. Again, Webb just ghosts across the middle of the road, midway down the Wellington Straight. Make sure that there isn't a hole for Gael Castelli to leap through. Meanwhile, got Sylvain Noël in a little bit of trouble. He gets passed by Nicolas Milan and into the clutches of Jean-Baptiste Mailer, who has a bit of a big moment coming out of Brooklands. And Mailer is still not finished correcting the car. He does now through Luffield. Now here's a look at what happened. Milan to the inside of Noël. He was able to make it, well, sort of stick. So they headed on to the Wellington Straight. So for the final time, up towards Magnus and Beckett's, it's going to be a 12-lap race, this, and Webb and Castelli right on the ragged edge. Both cars sliding into Beckett's, but it's Webb who's possibly bought himself a 10th or two as they head on to the hanger straight, and that means that Castelli, he will close up a little bit in the toe maybe, but he's not going to be close enough to Webb to challenge him as they arrive into Stowe Corner. Nonetheless, Ollie Webb just turns across fractionally earlier than he would have done on the qualifying lap, just to make sure that the door is closed, lest Castelli fancy a late lunge on the brakes. But it's really through this final half of the lap where Gael Castelli's been so strong throughout the course of the race. As the two cars fly in tandem, as they have done throughout the course of the afternoon. Vincent Beltroise, an increasingly distant third place, is now best part of 5 seconds adrift of this fight for the lead, but maintaining the buffer that he needed to over Julien Neveu. What's incredible is the top 10 cars, after 25 minutes plus a lap of racing, are only separated by 25 seconds. The top 8 separated by just 10 seconds. Shows how close this category is. And bodes very, very well for the future of the Alpine Elf Europa Cup. So out of the loop through entry for the final time as Castelli looks to challenge Ollie Webb. Webb has got it covered through Brooklands. They just need to navigate Luffield, then it's the sprint to the line. There's only a couple of tenths of a second between them as they head through Luffield for the final time. Ollie Webb gets the power down, accelerates towards Woodcote. It is going to be a double victory this weekend in the Alpine Elf Europa Cup for Ollie Webb. But that was a great race with Gael Castelli, who takes second place, just 3/10 of a second adrift at the line. A really great performance from both drivers. Vincent Belchoise completes the podium ahead of Julien Neveu, with then Nicolas Milan clear of Sylvain Noël, who was the top gentleman driver from Jean-Baptiste Meyler. Laurent Ergon in 8th, second of the gentleman drivers, with then Pierre Sanchiena, the points leader, home in 9th. Mathieu Blaise rounding out the top 10. Waiting for Franck Rouxel and Pierre Macchi to come through, but they both dropped a little way adrift of the pace as the race unfolded. But it should be Franck Rouxel who completes the gentleman podium. So for Ollie Webb, very much a case of job done, but he really had to work for it this afternoon. It was that move down the hanger straight that ultimately decided it for Ollie Webb, because Gael Castelli, up until that point, and it really was only through Beckett's and Chapel where Webb appeared to demonstrably have the advantage over Gael Castelli. Everywhere else there was very, very little to choose between the pair of them. As Webb proceeds round back towards the pits. Making sure he picks up all the marbles on the tyres. So we will have a check at the final classification. So victory for Ollie Webb, just ahead of Gael Castelli. It was Castelli, though, who claimed the fastest lap. Vincent Belchoise home 3rd, ahead of Julien Neveu, Nicolas Milan. Sylvain Noël 6th, and the top gentleman driver from Jean-Baptiste Meyler, Laurent Ergon. Pierre Sanchiena in 9th. Mathieu Blaise completes the top 10, ahead of Franck Rouxel and Pierre Macchi. And unfortunately, we lost Thomas Padovani after that big spin at Abbey early on. So Ollie Webb proceeding around back to the pit lane. And the podium. That is a case of job done for Ollie this weekend, but his second race was high intensity, great battle with Gael Castelli. It's Castelli, though, given Ollie's invitational status in the category this weekend, who will come away with the full points haul from today. As the drivers peel into the pit lane. Vincent Belchoise then 3rd place, second of the points finishers, and Julien Neveu kept him really honest all the way through the race, but he could never quite craft that overtaking opportunity as Webb squeezes to a halt at the foot of the podium, shuts the car off, pops the belts, and will jump out of the cockpit momentarily. So Webb out-handed the handshakes and the bottle of water to big smiles all around Gael Castelli, to the delight of the team. I think he really enjoyed that. It was a great performance from Castelli. Thumbs up from him as well for his effort. Congratulations too from Ollie Webb. Laurent Ergon will be on the podium as the second of the gentleman drivers behind Sylvain Noël and ahead of Franck Rouxel.
A couple of things. The first one, it looks like they're on slicks. I think that answers that one. And secondly, I've got to tell you, these are mental, is that the engines are in the back there, and I'm looking through the window in the back of them, and these engines just look massive. So that's a really interesting car that I'm not having the opportunity to get close to, so I just thought I'd get a bit of that. And we're not quite ready for podium, but we're not far away, so we can do that.
No, will do, but you do get a unique perspective on top of podium there. You look down on top of the cars as they pass underneath you, and you really get to admire the cars up close.
So Ollie Webb at the foot of the podium. Several very happy drivers. It's been a successful weekend of racing for the Alpine Elf Europa Cup. They will next be in action in Spa-Francorchamps as we take a look at the best of the race. And it was Gael Castelli who swept into the early advantage through Copse Corner and then set about trying to split the rest of the field. There's lots of jostling for position in the early stages. Laurent Ergon and Sylvain Noël enjoying a good back and forth. Meanwhile, Nicolas Milan having a good scrap with Jean-Baptiste Mehler, darting to the inside of Village, en route to an eventual 5th place for Milan. So he was able to make good progress up through the pack. Pierre Sanchiena and Mathieu Blaise also enjoying a race-long tussle. It was eventually decided in favour of Sanchiena. Well, he and Blaise running closely. Nicolas Milan enjoyed that move into Village so much, they repeated it on Laurent Ergon. Jean-Baptiste Mehler trying to follow through as well, but he couldn't quite squeeze past Ergon at that point, although he was able to move clear of the black and green car a little bit later on. Ollie Webb was able to pass Gael Castelli at 2/3 distance, and despite the fight back from Castelli, it was Webb who came through to make it 2 from 2 for the weekend, with Castelli following him through. A very close runner-up, just 0.3 of a second adrift, and Vincent Beltoise completing the top 3 ahead of Julien Neveu. So we should be getting the drivers up on to the rostrum momentarily. Hot and thirsty work for them in the cockpit. Not unsurprisingly, it's a warm day here as drivers toweling off, about to head on to the podium.
Here we go, we're ready for the podium, and we've got 2, one to the general, one to the gentleman. So first of all, the overall top 3. In 3rd position, the number 2 car, Vincent Beltoise.
So Vincent Beltoise to the 3rd step of the podium. His 2nd trip to the rostrum of the weekend. Runner-up, Gael Castelli, superb battle with Ollie Webb. And then Ollie Webb making it 2 from 2 at Silverstone. Far less dominant victory than yesterday, but nonetheless the result the same. Onto the top step of the podium. So the national anthem for Ollie Webb on the top step of the Silverstone podium. Big grin. So on to the presentation of the trophies, the very attractive Alpine trophy. Vincent Beltoise, the same to Gael Castelli. Great scrap with Ollie Webb. And Ollie Webb then receiving the winner's trophy. So 2 from 2 for Ollie Webb in the Alpine Elf Europa Cup this weekend. Photos posed for. Time for the bubbly. Corks are popped, mechanics are soaked at the foot of the Silverstone podium. And then we can turn our attention to the gentleman drivers' podium, where it was Franck Roussel who claimed third behind Laurent Ergon and Sylvain Noël. Some more drivers to come out on to the rostrum. A moment's time anyway. So gentlemen drivers poised behind the podium. Franck Roussel up to third step of the podium. Second time that he's been on the rostrum this weekend. Runner-up, Laurent Ergon. And then Sylvain Noël, who has been in the thick of the action all weekend. And he claims the gentleman drivers' honours in the second of the Alpine Elf Europa Cup races for the weekend here at Silverstone.
So we now have the national anthem for the winning driver. Congratulations to the winning driver there, of course.
So the French national anthem to salute the gentlemen drivers. They immediately make for the champagne corks. We will say thank you very much for joining us this weekend here in Silverstone. The Alpine Elf Europa Cup continues in Spa in a few weeks' time.
They're doing it out of order because Sylvain started. We'll let them do that first. Don't believe me. Wait up there. We've got to get your trophies out yet. Sylvain's just got a little bit of... Don't worry, guys. You can get him on his own in a minute. Right. We've got Williamson now. Come on through. Third place, first of all, to Franck Roussel. Congratulations. Director of Sinotech. Thank you. And back now. Grab the second place trophy. And this one will go to Laurent Ergon.
Ready when you are. Yeah, already. 1, 2, 3, 4.